The Oxford Dictionary defines the term disruptive as disturbance or problems which interrupts an event, activity, or process. We as a society have socialized that into being something negative, like it is bad to be a disruptive boy, it is bad to be a disruptive girl. Well, I personally don't think so. Disruption can actually be a good thing. In fact, a revolutionary act. The true essence of activism lies in being disruptive. And the future of Africa could be in the hands of young disruptive individuals. My name is Zulaikha Patel, a young African girl who is proud to be disruptive in every unapologetic sense. After this talk, you'll most probably want to be disruptive, trust me. The story of my life is literally a tale of being disruptive anywhere and everywhere I go. I disturb and interrupt systems that place injustices on young people and women, such as when I was told in high school, I quote, "Zulaikha, Afros aren't allowed here. They look like birds' nests." And I said, asking me to change my hair is asking me to erase my blackness. And I every day proudly set foot into school with my natural hair. Simply taking that decision, I disrupted a system of Eurocentric beauty standards embedded in school hair rules. Of course, it didn't all start there. It began during my very complicated childhood as I navigated my way through trying to embrace my identity as a young African girl through this post-colonial period which we find ourselves in, and in my case, the South African case, the post-apartheid period, which is quite difficult to do. My father is Indian, originally from India, and my mother is Ndebele, originally from Mpumalanga in South Africa. What made my childhood so complicated was the impact that South Africa's deeply racist history had on the minds of people. See, I was born in a time when all South Africa could say to young people was, "You were born free, embrace democracy." Born free meant that you were born after 1994 in a time of what was apparent freedom, political freedom to be precise. But you see, political freedom means absolutely nothing without mental emancipation. We can never really truly get rid of colonization and its systems if we never rid ourselves of the colonialism systems that we've been indoctrinated with in our minds. We can never really get rid of any system of racial prejudice if we don't head on confront the oppressor in our minds, which is the greatest oppressor currently. See, I had a traumatizing childhood where I experienced many traumatizing racist events. During a time when I was told I was free and I needed to feel good about democracy. As a child, I never felt that freedom. I could walk around in town and have the public negatively look at me in confusion. And I would have people make snarky remarks such as, "Why is an Indian man walking around with a black child with odd-looking kinky hair?" Or when I was with my mother, society would assume that my mother was my nanny, and they would ask why she's with a colored child. Or the most common and the most uncomfortable experiences that happened to me almost all the time in my life. People would unpleasantly grab my hair without my permission, I emphasize without my permission, and ask me what I am. What am I? Am I not human? What am I? Or when I was repeatedly expelled from primary schools because my hair, which was criminalized, and I was told in grade 7 that afros are not permitted. And I was like, I'm not committing any crime. I am simply allowing hair to grow from my scalp as it should, like any other human being. Or when I got to high school, and I experienced one thing which I believe led to my activism. It made me want to do anything and everything to fight for a better society. One, I got pencil tested, which was previously used by the apartheid government to determine one's race. In my case, it was used to determine my race. Or like the racist said, they wanted to prove that my hair was not worthy of fitting in. Never in my entire life had I felt the way I felt that day. I remember I got home and I cried my eyes out. I never wanted to ever hear the term born free. From these stories I've just told you that have made me disruptive, surprisingly, these stories aren't unique at all. These are average stories that any young black South African could narrate to you. They could tell you about their incidents with institutionalized racism. They could narrate to you many tales of being discriminated against in a country where they're told that they're free. See, these ideas of colonialism are still so attached to our institutions. What was then constitutionalized is now institutionalized and is what drives the institutions of our country. Now, my first year in high school was quite interesting because I finally met the people I'd been looking for. Throughout my entire disruptive life, I finally met disruptive people that embraced me. I met a group of girls who had the same passion to disrupt because we hated the injustices we had experienced. We wanted to recreate education. We wanted to transform education into something that was Afrocentric, into a system where discipline was not placed on black children's identities, where they could be free, freely grow their natural hair and go to school freely, where they would not be subjected to institutionalized racism and would be true born frees. On the 26th of August 2016, we silently decided to protest the system by coming in all black and African head wraps in silent resistance to the system. The following day, on the 27th, we decided to grab the public's attention by leading a silent protest at a school event where we marched around the school. And obviously, there's never a good positive response to disruptive behavior. So we were confronted by a high-risk security team hired by the school, which happened to be men which were probably 3 times my size, and were armed. And then I was 13. And we were told that we were going to get arrested. I didn't understand why I had to be arrested for attempting to disrupt injustice and attempting to recreate a better society. I didn't understand. And so we resisted. And we told the security guards to arrest us. And I remember saying that you can arrest us all. In my mind, I remember thinking that if I didn't do this, future generations to come would be subjected to the same experiences that I experienced. Children would still get pencil tested. Children would still be lied to and told that they're born free, yet they can't grow their hair freely. And so we were so determined to disrupt this Eurocentric education system and to transform it into something that would work for Africa in the future. And so after the protest, we were assisted by our very, very good friend, Twitter, which assisted to further our cause and assisted us in getting the world's attention. So we decided to go onto Twitter and to create a hashtag called #StopRacism at Pretoria High School for Girls. I personally never thought that it would reach the attention that it got. I never thought that it would go global and viral. So through this, we were able to create a platform for young black people to share photos of their natural hair and share stories of how they experienced institutionalized racism in what is called a democratic society. And it allowed for young students to also speak about experiences that they're currently experiencing in their schools. This happened to be one of the best times of my entire disruptive life. Since then, I unapologetically embody the spirit of being disruptive. As a young black female activist, I exist unapologetically in a lot of my spaces as the youngest, and where I disrupt systems of ageism that say that young people cannot lead. I continue to exist as a woman, where I disrupt patriarchy, which brings me to what I want you to take home with you. There are 3 pointers on how to embody a positive spirit of disruption, and this is my idea worth sharing with you. To begin the process of disruption, 1, Most importantly, disrupt injustice by all means necessary. That begins by disrupting the biggest oppressor, your mind. Anything would be invalid without mental emancipation. Decolonization is something that is meant to be felt first in your mind, body, and spirits. With decolonized thinking, you can then begin to decolonize systems around you. Two, recreate. We cannot disrupt if we are not ready to recreate. So if we are to decolonize education, then we would have to recreate Afrocentric education. We would need to design a brand new future for Africa, which is Afrocentric, and create systems which include young people. As the future is ours to inherit, and it must be determined by us, we need to create platforms for young people to come and express themselves and new avenues for them to come and recreate an Africa they want to see in the future and an Africa they want to live in the future. And finally, three, leadership. Once we have recreated this exciting Afrocentric, vibrant future, we need to allow young people to lead it. Young people cannot have their futures determined by those who won't be part of it. Young people's leadership is how we will get Africa to move forward and never backward. So in conclusion, disruption is absolutely beautiful. So dear young people, we owe it to ourselves to be disruptive. We owe it to our emancipation to be disruptive. We owe it to the future generation to be disruptive. We owe it to a future that we are yet to inherit and occupy to be disruptive, a future that must be determined by ourselves on our terms. So young people, don't just dare to be disruptive. Of course, go on and be disruptive. Go on and disrupt injustices around you. And if you ought to truly ever disrupt injustice, you have got to do it with every ounce of confidence and fearlessness that exists within you. And in the spirit of being disruptive, Aluta Continua, thank you.